What is up, everybody? This is Recap Rewind. I'm JLAG.
And I'm NB.
And we are recapping and reviewing You on Lifetime, episode 5. And it's called
Living with the Enemy. Because you know who the enemy is.
All of them. Everyone.
That's normal. And Joe isn't. And don't forget, guys, stick around for the ending because we are going to go through our recap roundups, our best moments, our best lines, our MVPs, LVPs. So stick around for that because JLAG, I can tell, is going to get lit for it.
You know I will. So yeah, anyone who has just started listening to us, thank you for joining. Make sure you guys comment and subscribe to the channel. And all our returning viewers, thanks for coming back. And let's get into the episode.
Let's get into it because what did you think about it?
I think just generally it was good. As we know, the episode... based on the fact that we know the book, it's just one of those things we know was going to happen.
One of my favorite moments for sure. And it's funny because I saw Caroline Kepnes' tweet like right before I watched it. And she was like, don't work out outside. And I was like, what does she mean? I'm like, oh, it's this episode.
Yeah.
But even though the episode it wasn't my favorite, I will say, like, I wasn't crazy about it.
Sure.
I was waiting for that scene because that was one of my favorite scenes from the book when she's running. But we'll talk about it after. But I wasn't really happy with it. Fair enough. I'll explain later.
I think that I liked the episode and the way that it kind of went. I will say where I felt like it didn't go the way that it should have gone.
Yeah, like otherwise, like everything went the way it should have gone. But like just that one moment, I was like, Yeah.
Anyway, let's get right to the top.
Let's start. Yeah.
So as we know from last episode,
like, really
Joe
happy.
And Beck are like together now.
He's like in the bed.
They're in the bed. They're like happy.
Beckalicious.
He's like, but he sounds like he's obsessed.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm happy, and I get sad when you're like away from me,
for like 5
and
minutes.
it makes me hurt. That being said, everyone who's been in love has had that feeling,
especially in the beginning. It's gonna
totally
be like all exciting, but like because you already know he's sketch, you're like, ugh.
You're sketchy.
And then at one point he's like, we have sex, cook, or like whatever.
Yeah.
And then she's like, you're a creeper, and I'm like, because he is though. Yeah. So like, yeah.
There's all these moments.
We know so much more.
Then poor Beck.
And I think it was like the first time where I actually was like, I wonder how you would react to the story if you didn't know anything about Joe and you were almost in Beck's shoes.
Yeah.
And then in the end, like you were kind of like shook. Like, how would you take it all?
It's true.
Right?
Yeah. It's very odd.
Because from her side, she's just in love.
She's like just chilling. She's enjoying herself. I think that's the reason why we can give her the benefit of the doubt that she isn't a complete naive idiot. Because I think on the other side, he plays it really well. He's really good at showing that he's not a psychopath.
Guys, he was literally doing her lingerie.
Yeah.
Like, that is like gold standard. Like, take that in. Like, she was working and he was folding clothes. Like, I don't even know what universe that's in. But that's I'm like,
you're like,
shit.
That's the red flag. Is that the fact that he was doing
when
laundry.
he offers to fold your freaking and then he smells her underwear.
Like sniffing, of course. So anyway, so they have their little moment in the morning, and there's a really quick throw to the neighbor screaming, and Beck is like, it's happening again, and he's like, I don't like to deal with it, and she says, well, maybe you should like get in the middle of it all. I don't know why she would say that, and I'm not really sure what it's leading up to. So as we've talked about in the past 4 episodes, this is one part of the book that doesn't exist.
For sure it doesn't. Like, for sure the abusive neighbor story is not in the book.
No, not at all.
Like,
I'm not sure where it's going. Part of me feels that it's gonna take the place of another character doing something to Joe later in the later on in the show. So I'm not going to say who that is, but I definitely think that they're setting him up to be that person who does this thing to Joe later, but I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay. Or
Joe just like ends up killing. I don't know effing clue.
Yeah, even that's kind of
so that's being thrown in there again this week. This week's episode, and he just says like he misses her all the time when she leaves, and then it cuts to him hanging out with her friends at his place, or no, it's her place. It's her place. So
and they're watching The Bachelorette.
Bachelorette, whatever Riverdale sells, and they're just hanging out, and it's his voiceover judging the F out of her friends. So he's like, Annika's,
which by the way I loved.
Like
that whole monologue. I loved his monologue, and I always. I do love most of what he says
because there's a truth. There's truth,
but there is so much truth.
He's so
behind it.
analytical, and he's so aware of other people's flaws and their issues that he honestly is such a mirror to this generation.
That's exactly
what
I wrote.
When he's narrating it and when he's saying that, it's very true to that, and you can totally see that picture painted. You can see these characters, so even when you're reading the book, you're like, yes, of course Annika's that person. Yes, of course Lynn is that person.
There's so many whys that Caroline Kepnes like asks in the book. Like, why are we like this? Like, even Joel was like, you guys are all like educated, like really strong women, and your guys are watching this dumbass shitty show. Like,
he
why?
He says at one point in time, sometimes I swear I'm the only real feminist you know, which is hilarious because like he's the farthest away from it.
It's just I do love his monologue.
And so he calls out everybody's flaws, and I wanted to talk about a little bit because we do delve into the character a little bit extra. But Annika, you see how he analyzes her for a second, and I think this actually happens in the book too. The guacamole falling on her shirt, and how Peach comes in and is like, make sure that you don't you're such a messy bitch. Like, whatever.
And she's basically saying like your boobs are so big that like it blocked the guac from falling on the couch. And
it's her defense mechanism to like rub that in Peach's face because she has nothing else. It was just very interesting to see Annika's analysis. I didn't know they were going to go that deep into her character, but they show that she's like this social influencer, and like, you know, it's a very interesting having that character in this world because it's so current to our time and our generation. So he's judging her friends, and then Peach comes in. And he sees that there's tension there, and he's narrating through the tension. He's saying, you know, maybe I shouldn't have taken that book. Maybe I shouldn't have given it back. I don't know. The point is I did it, and like now we have to deal with the consequences. It's a question that we had last episode where like you see him like standing in the corner after he puts the book back. Why did you steal in the first place?
Why did he steal it?
And why did you bring it back? It's so stupid.
Did he give it to Paco?
He gave it to Paco to read.
So stupid.
That's what I mean.
And like, then he gave it back. Like,
and then he gave it back. It just didn't make any sense. It just made her sketch the F out. So she shows up, and she's like giving him eyes the entire time. She's being snarky with him. She's like, oh, classic like girls' night was better than like this one with like everybody or whatever. She was like,
although like it is a little weird that like he's sitting in the corner on girls' night. Like, and it's kind of creepy.
I do think that there's a level of, well, this episode especially shows the constant back and forth between
which I was loving, by the way.
Joe, it was amazing. We'll talk about it later, but it's definitely one of the best parts of this episode is their back and forth and their constant fight for Beck's attention, essentially, and ownership. Really, if you want to look at it that way, it's the ownership of Beck. So Peach comes out and she like literally lays it out. So she like, this is what I love about Peach's character, and I'll say this now because she doesn't do some amazing things later, but I think that seeing her in this moment, you see that she's not like one of the dumb ones. She's not a follower. She's not an Annika. She's not a Lynn in this particular situation. She is the queen bee, and she's a queen bee for a reason. She comes right to Joe's face. She's like, this is the book. I'm going to be passive aggressive about it, but I'm going to snap right in your face. Like, so she brings the book to him. She's like, oh, look at this book. How much do you think it is? Trying to goad him out of it. And obviously he's smarter than that. And you hear it in his voiceover saying like, obviously she's trying to pull me into this, whatever. And he's clapping right back at her saying, I'm just like a lowly thing, but you should just hold on to that book. Whatever.
Like, what would I know? I'm just like a lousy like book.
Exactly.
Book
so
clerk,
he's
like,
throwing the words back in her mouth, you know, the things that she judges him on. So it's just a very interesting dynamic between the two of them right from the get-go.
And it was, I think, the first time where I really saw Shay Mitchell in, not that I didn't see her before, but like I just felt it so much more because she definitely holds her presence and she holds a scene, and she is that girl, I feel like, in a little sense. So I feel like them having Shay Mitchell as Peach was like the perfect choice. So perfect. Because I think it would have been really hard to find someone who could stand up with Penn Badgley in the same like you know, level.
To play a proper bitch is work. It's proper work. Like, you can't throw a Beck in there and try to stand up to Joe. It won't read the same way as Shay Mitchell coming in, the way she comes in and plays it really, really well.
And she does play a huge role in the show that I feel like wasn't as big in the book.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
Peach was big in the book, but not this big, I feel like.
I feel like she was pretty big in the
I don't
book.
know.
She has a very large role in the sense that I do definitely think that they're diving deeper into her character, and you get to see her and experience her a little bit better.
I guess they spread her out more maybe in the show.
That's true.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that happens. That little exchange happens, and he essentially takes away from that moment, like, I need to make sure that she just kind of keeps away from our relationship. And so that's the end of that. And then it shows Annika coming to the bookstore, and she's just calling them out on how shitty their website is.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm a social media influencer. Like, I can, you know, help like spruce you guys up if I want to, like, whatever. She's just trying to do a good deed for her friend because she likes Joe. You know, she's mentioned it before in the past episodes that she actually likes Joe. She's rooting for him. Yeah. She's glad that, like, she's like, you know, Beck is getting good sex, whatever, you know, so she's down for him. So she comes to this bookstore, she's talking about it. Annoyingly, Ethan is just like always randomly there, which is kind of annoying.
Is she the one that he becomes friends with?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But
because he does befriend one of her friends, I think. So it might be Annika. Yeah.
But in this particular situation, Annika just talks to Joe, and Joe's going through her social media, and he finds a picture of Annika and
like
Peach,
a throwback Thursday.
Like a throwback Thursday, but it's like a really not a flattering picture of either of them. But Annika doesn't care because her whole brand is built on body positivity and like looking pretty, like from the inside out, whatever.
But apparently,
according
Shay Peach had a nose job.
Yeah, I mean, in the picture, it's like big, like that's a big nose. They like photoshopped in there. So Joe chooses that moment. He's so very
catty.
strategic.
Like he's such. Yeah.
It's hilarious how he gets very into it. For someone who doesn't know anything about social media,
right?
He was very much like a part of that world and knowing how to manipulate it. So that's an interesting trait that I don't think you see that often in the books. So he calls her and says like, why don't you post this picture? This picture's hilarious. And Annika's like, why shouldn't I? And then she was like, but Peach would kill me.
I feel like she broke the golden rule though, because she just She just posted a post, and then like 10 seconds later she posted another post. You know what I mean? Like you can't be doing that if you're an influencer. Like how are you going to be posting like, every 30 seconds
in the bookstore? And then she did the throw.
Exactly. I was like, oh no, girl, no.
You're not on your social media game. So yeah, he kind of eggs her on and encourages her to post his picture.
And she falls for it.
She falls for it, and he comes up even with the caption, like, bitches being real or something.
Yeah.
And she was like, you are amazing, Jai. Like, she's so that girl. Anyway, whatever. So that happens, and then clearly there's a huge backlash because of it. It happens a little bit later in the episode, or like next scene.
Sorry, I'm still laughing because you made her sound like the girl from Big Mouth, the blonde girl.
Totally. I feel like she is that girl, though. She's exactly that girl. So anyway, watch Big Mouth, by the way, guys.
Oh my god,
hilarious. So Beck, it cuts to Beck talking to her professor. Professor's like, your paper was amazing. I know that it's hard to talk about family, and I'm sorry about your dad, but let's set you up with an agent. Yeah. And she's like, yes, lit, cool. Then it cuts to Joe and Beck at home, and they're about to go out for dinner. He's like all dressed up. He's like, let's go to this fancy place. Like, he's showing up.
No,
man.
His date idea was so effing cute. He was
so
like,
adorable.
We'll go. He's basically copying like what, like old like literary artists.
Yeah,
and, like where they've gone in New York, I guess. Like
F. Scott Fitzgerald and Zelda.
Spots in New York.
Yeah.
It's like, we'll go here, and then we'll take like a thing here. We'll go to this. I was like, that is so effing cute.
And she knows that he's poor, but he's like, I don't even care. Like, I'm in love with you.
He's,
like it's
adorable. He probably got like a Groupon, but like whatever. It's still cute.
I'm so into Joe.
No, really.
Honestly.
In this episode, I was like, he's man is putting in work, and I am impressed.
and even the fact that he filters out friends. Okay, before we like continue, like I think that is something that people do when they start dating people.
What do you mean filter out friends?
He's in this episode, it's really all about him looking at her friends and being like, you shouldn't be hanging out with these people. You know what I mean? And that influence that the person that you care about, that you love, has in your life based on the people that you know. I think it happens to everybody.
Does she take the advice right away?
She doesn't, not in this episode, but she's slowly learning that he's onto something. And that's what kind of like leads up to the end of the episode. But Anyway, so they're about to go for dinner,
Right.
and then she gets a phone call from Annika, and Annika's like bawling.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that somebody posted anonymously a video of Annika saying some racist ish about like people coming after her, like wanting to date her, and then like she's like, but I can't be like this people. So anyway, it gets very like whatever, and her like reputation is tarnished.
Yeah, like people freaked out on her Instagram. They're like, you're done.
Right. So then it cuts to the next day, and we're at the bookstore, and Joe is like chilling upstairs, and Peach comes in.
Mm-hmm.
I love this moment because I love Shay Mitchell in this.
Yeah, this episode
just
was
so like this episode. Shay Mitchell was on fire, and I loved it.
For sure.
She was the perfect annoying like biatch that she had to be for this role. So she comes in, and she's just like, "Hey, Beckalicious, how are things? Whatever." And then she's like, "Is like, Joe here?"
Joseph?
And then she's like, "Hi, Joe," like just yelling in this bookstore.
Yeah.
She's just that privileged person, and she plays it so well. So then Beck says, actually, you know, I'm really excited. I don't want to like take away from like Annika's like meltdown moment, but you know, I'm getting a agent like, from I'm gonna
get lit in my career.
And so Peach uses this moment, and it's very interesting the way it's played out. She's like, you know what? Like I really was gonna like show this to you later, but like, you know, I have connections, and I want to have like I can get you an agent. Why is that the
first time you're talking about your connections?
But that's exactly what it is. It's all the power that she has, and holding that over. Like Beck can't do anything herself, which is really interesting because I think that we do know people in our lives who are like that, who only want to help you when it benefits them.
I mean, Peach is an exception. I feel like Peach is definitely like over the top. Like it's very manipulative. Like she's very manipulative. Anyway, so she's like, we're gonna throw a party. She's like, I'll like bring my connect. To this like fancy like party that
and she says like we're gonna throw it at this the bookstore, which is the part that this is the part that kind of killed me the most. I was like dying of laughter because she's like, I have an idea. She like looks around the bookstore. She's like, Joe, or no, she's like, Joseph, Joe. Like she's literally like yelling 10 times. She knows where he is. It's the smallest bookstore, but like she's yelling Joseph, and he's like rolling his eyes coming down the stairs like, hey, Peach. So it's just like a funny like the dynamic. Blair
to his
Dine Humphreys. Exactly that. It's like switch out freaking Leighton Meester for her. So she's just being that person, and she's like, we're gonna host a party, an event, and I'm gonna bring all these movers and shakers in the publishing world. She's like, you just need to like clean it up because it's a little dusty up in here. So
and he's like, okay,
fine. He wants to say no. He wants to be like, you're like a loser and this is not a good idea, because he's like, there's this agent that she wants him to set him up with, or set her back up with, but he's like, I know this is all not going to make sense.
What I love,
but he's like, who is he to like say that to her? Who's he to like tell Beck like no? You know what I mean? He's like, what he even says, he's like, that's not what someone who loves you would do. Yeah, you know,
there's so many sweet moments that he has like that line. And I also find it surprising at how confident he is in these moments. Yeah. Where like someone who is like him could be very insecure and like very like scared of losing Beck to this. Yeah. And sort of rejecting every single thing that happens to her. Mm-hmm. But instead he like plays it. Not that he plays it. I think he is just confident in that way too. And he's like, yeah, cool. He's like, we'll do that too. Yeah. Like he's not fazed at all. And like, that's pretty sexy too. Like he's not worried.
That's hot.
It's almost like he knows that Peach will F up at some point, maybe along the way. I don't know. But yeah, he's very confident about it all.
I mean, I don't think there's anything that he can do about it right now either, you know?
But what his initial reaction could be like, no, that's so stupid. Or but he's like smart and like he's like, no, he's like, that's cool. Yeah.
It's true. So then that's all being set up, and then it cuts to Paco.
Oh my god! I knew it. I'm like, JLA's gonna freak out. He's gonna glitch out at Paco, because even I got mad at this kid.
See, there you go. So Paco's sitting at the stairs, and he's reading Wuthering Heights, which we read in grade 10. So I was like, throwback. But he's not reading Wuthering Heights. He's reading a book on juvenile people going to jail for like killing people. Like so essentially he's trying to figure out like if he would go to jail if he like killed his his like stepdad. So Joe brings him inside, and he's like, listen, I know how hard it is. I'm sorry you're going through this. And He's like, this is not how you have to do it. Like, you're going to go to jail. You're going to go to foster home. If you go this way, don't try it. And I guess it's supposed to allude to the fact that Joe's literally been through something similar to that, because we don't really know Joe's parental history. So I think that's, to your point in the last episodes and all the annoyances that I have with Paco, it's really just it's using Paco as a means to get into his past.
Because he does say, he goes, that happened to me, or he goes, I couldn't do it, or something.
Right. So he goes back to the bookstore and he's like, take this book instead, read this. Or he just gives it to him off of his shelf and he says, read this instead. And he's like, what is this? I thought it was the Bible, but it was Count of Monte Cristo. And he was like, this will teach you how to sleep with the enemy. Not like sleep with, but like deal with him. And anyway, like, if you haven't read Count of Monte Cristo, it's basically a guy who pretends to be a certain guy for like years and years and years, and then finally at the very end he was like, boom, I was that person and now you're dead. Like, he plays the long game revenge, essentially. Spoiler alert for book readers. But then it cuts to the party at the bookstore, and Joe and Peach have this amazing back and forth conversation while Beck is being introduced to the publisher. So they're kind of sitting in the back area and Joe's kind of just watching her from afar, and Peach comes by and she was like, you know, I kind of feel bad for Beck sometimes. You know, sometimes she doesn't know what's best for her. And I feel like she's so lucky to have me in her life. And Joe's not really saying anything, but you hear his thoughts, and his thoughts are basically like, you're a biatch. You know that this is not a good idea. But also it's this underlying jealousy because she's hooking him up with a man, right? And right in his face. So there's a lot of throws that there's a lot of like things that Peach does this episode that really start to stoke Joe's frustration with her, including, you know, setting her up with a male publisher and doing all these little things here and there, like against his will. So that happens, and Joe tries to find his bearings somehow too, and he tries to get some more information on Peach, and so he steals her bag. And steals her laptop and goes downstairs into like the creepy downstairs and tries to figure out what the situation is. So he gets to the laptop. It's locked, of course, like password protected. He can't figure it out. He's like, okay, I can't do this right now. And then he keeps digging and he finds a diary. And it's a food diary of literally everything that she has on the daily. But in that, she uses a Polaroid of Beck sleeping as like a bookmark. And he's like, what is this? And it's her like in a summer dress. Like a young
picture of her too, kind of.
He's like, how old were you in this picture? And sure enough, I honestly didn't know they were going to go this way. Did you think that this was going to happen?
No, not at all.
So he's sitting in the basement and he's holding this Polaroid and he's like, oh yeah, like, what is this picture?
Starts jerking off to the picture.
Like, he sees like an image of her show up, and she's like about to straddle him. They think they make out, and he's like, like he like freaking jerks off and whatever to the picture. So
it's just funny how like both of their obsessions like kind of weaving together at this point too. Like, he's taking what she's had and jerking off to it. It's not even like he's like, ew, what is this? Like, what a weirdo. He like takes it and like totally like masturbates to it too. I mean, he gets off on it.
He does say what a weirdo, but he's completely ignoring the fact that he's downstairs stealing he's ignoring all of his actions by saying like, you're crazy. Like, he's not looking in the mirror himself saying like, but I'm crazy too. He's not trying to use it as a means to ally with her. He's like seeing her as a full threat because they're very similar. So he sees this picture and he asks that question. He's like, why do you have this picture of her? Why is it like there? And all the while he's asking these questions, he's like jerking off. So then that moment makes you realize, true, he's also crazy. Like, he's also
that
insane.
Moment made you realize that. I'm glad.
No, I mean, I think it's one of those things where you're following Joe on this journey to be like, is Peach a sketch bag? Is, you know, like this episode especially, I'd love to know what you guys were, like, if you guys felt the same way, people who haven't read the book, if you felt like Joe was doing what he felt was necessary to protect his relationship with Beck by doing his own investigation, or was he creeping you out from the beginning to the end? You know what I mean? Like, I would love to know if that is the vibe you got, or if you would do something similar, maybe not that extra, but if you had a friend, or if your girlfriend or boyfriend had a friend who was a little weird or a little off, or you felt like was too overpowering, wouldn't you do the same kind of deep digging as Joe did.
Right.
So anyway, he comes back upstairs, and as he's putting away the laptop, he sees Peach and the guy talking upstairs. They're having a cigarette, which is like even more annoying. Like you get frustrated about that too, because you're obviously like the rule breakers, like the high society, whatever. And so they're talking about Beck, and she says, or I think he asked the question, he's like, do you think that she's ready? And Peach is like, no, I think she's still young. She still has a lot to learn, but let her down easy.
Yeah. And he was making fun of the fact that like she's doing her master's or whatever.
Right.
And he was like, what a waste. Like, it's such a joke, those programs. Like, whatever.
And Joe is
of
like...
course, Joe overhears everything because he's the only one that has ears in this show.
And like pinpoint ears.
Like they were upstairs. He was like downstairs.
Yeah, like
so,
with
is
the
there
party.
Music playing? Like,
I have no idea. So... And it's anyway, whatever.
Yeah,
so
he overhears them.
He overhears them, and he says it. He's like, I hate to be the person like who like told you so, but I told you so. Yeah. And so now he wants to try to find a way to like crack this situation or help Beck out. So he steals the laptop. He's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to steal the laptop. So he steals the laptop, and then that's the end of that scene. Then it cuts to Joe at the cafe, and he was like, I tried every single password. I don't know what it is. So I'm going to try to tap into like some next person and see if I can figure it out. Yeah. So then it shows Annika walking up, and she's like embarrassed, right? Because of what happened with her. And it's very much like a Mean Girls moment. I wrote down Mean Girls moment because it's very much like, if anybody's watched Mean Girls, I've watched it like a million times, but like when the Gretchen Wiener says like, she can't like do this, like whatever.
Like
she like freaks out essentially.
Yeah.
And she like can't help herself but say, like Annika can't help but say, like, you know, like Beck is like her pet. Haven't you seen how she treats her? She treats her like this. And, you know, Peach is just this person that wants people to give her all the attention. She's the queen bee. Yeah. She's the typical queen bee. And it's very much that moment. And so Joe's like asking random questions like, did she have a dog? Like he's just trying to fish for answers, and he can't figure anything out. And then at that moment in time, Beck calls Joe while they're sitting at the cafe, and
she goes, Peach is here.
She's like, Peach is here, and she's like
BT dubs,
freaking out and looking for her laptop.
Which was so effing rude. I was like, the nerve this girl has though.
So it's like both things. First of all, how are you gonna let your friend run in there like that to your boyfriend's place and rummage through his shit? Number one.
So this scene I was very like tormented with, and like even when the episode finished, I was like, what would I have done if I was Beck?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing.
What would you have done if you were Joe?
No,
you know what I mean?
I'm not. No, I'm just like trying to think of Beck right now, because Beck's like in the middle, right? So I'm like, I'm a ride or die. I will always have my friends back, especially with a guy that like you've just been seeing for like literally like 2-3 months.
Sure.
So yes, your friend, you should be concerned, you should take your friend's side, but there was a limit. Her coming into the house and going through his shit was uncalled for. Yeah. Like as the girlfriend, you should say, wait till he gets here and then we can talk to him. Like letting her go through his shit, that was like messed up.
That was messed up. It was too much. For sure.
It was too much.
Absolutely. And I think
you don't own anything in that apartment. Like that's not your stuff. Like go and like a normal person, ask him.
Like get out of here. Yeah. And for Beck not to be this person who's like, I don't really know. You realize these moments, because this happens in the book as well. You realize these moments where you're like, why do people like her so much? Yeah. Like what is definitely like Beck's draw? Why do people like her
so much? But like I was saying, I get also where she's coming from. I get that she has to stick up for her friend too.
Okay.
I get it. Yeah. I get it. Because I feel like I would do the same thing. I wouldn't necessarily side with a guy that I've known for like 2 months over my.
But then why
friend.
Even call Joe up and be like, yo.
Yeah.
Joe, like, you know, Peach is looking for the laptop. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she's stuck in the middle.
Letting Peach in and like looking around.
Yeah.
100%.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's very frustrating. This was very frustrating too, because at the same time, like Joe has the patience of a saint in this scene too. Seriously. He doesn't say get the fuck out of my fucking apartment, and like he doesn't even turn to Beck and be like, I can't believe you just did that.
He does though. He comes and he's like, what the F is going on, first of all? And then I think when Peach does leave, he's like, you didn't even like do anything. Yeah. You didn't even like stay by my side.
Yeah. It's tight. It's tight what Beck is doing. And I think that it's so surprising that we're talking about Beck being the wrong person in the situation when you know all that Joe's doing is wrong too.
Both of what they're doing, right?
Both of them, what they're doing is wrong, but like everything that Beck does is not redeemable.
But I think that's what it is. I think someone like Beck would have these two people in her life.
Yeah.
Like she would.
I guess.
Like if you were like somewhat normal or more like confident in yourself, like you probably would book their craziness and be like, I'm not dealing with this shit.
I don't
like,
need to deal with either of these people.
Exactly.
They're insane.
You would notice that and you would just be like, no, I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah, it's true.
So like someone like her would definitely deal with that.
So Peach is looking for this. So Peach is looking for it. She's like, where is it, Joe? Like, I'm really annoyed. She's like, is it in some hidey hole where you scroll away your stolen goods? Which is,
I was like, booked.
I was like, like it's definitely like one of those lines where you have to like keep an eye on. And he's saying it too.
He's like, is she like, she thinks I'm stupid enough to like actually bring the laptop here,
right?
Like keep it here.
Yeah, and then she turns around. He tries to turn around. He's trying to win the situation out too because he's like, crap. What am I gonna do? I did steal the laptop.
Yeah.
And he says, well, has there been anybody who's like dealt with you before? Yeah. Like, have you had a stalker before?
Or like whatever.
And he's like, maybe somebody's obsessed with you. And so he uses his opportunity that he is like that mind of that person to like be obsessed with to see if like that's the case. And Beck does turn around and she's like, this isn't the first, like this isn't the first time. This has happened before.
Yeah.
And like even Joe asks and he's like what do you mean? She's like, let's just say James Franco and I didn't end well, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah, it was so funny. But I also love how he and then he's like whatever, he's like, do like find my Mac.
Yeah, find my laptop. And so she does, and then
he's like do that, and she's like, I know what that is. You don't have to mansplain like find my Mac to me. Right. I was like, yeah.
So this tension is their tension in every scene is so fantastic.
It was amazing.
It's great, and that's the thing. Beck is just sitting there being like,
but that's Beck, right?
Like frozen.
Yeah, she's basic. Basic Beck.
Basic Beck. So. Then Beck like looks over at her phone. She's like, "Isn't that your place?" And Peach like loses it. she just walks out. She just gets out. And Joe's like, "You're welcome," or like, apology accepted. He just gets really frustrated because she doesn't apologize. She just walks out. I would slap a hoe. Like honestly, I was so angry for Joe, which is the most hilarious.
He's gonna slap a hoe. That's for sure.
He's gonna smack. He's gonna whack a hoe. So. He's just really frustrated, like for a good reason. And Beck is like, I'm sorry. I can't choose right now. I'm stupid. So that's her thing.
I'm stupid.
And so then it cuts to him going to her house.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, it's like in the front of your house, like in a shelf underneath. I didn't know exactly where he was.
I didn't understand where that was.
I feel like it's in the front of her house where you would put like shoes or something.
The hell?
Anyway, it's a weird situation.
So
I didn't understand where it was too. But also like this guy is the worst stealth master of all time.
I mean, he's pretty good at it at this point. He's like sneaking around effing New York everywhere.
So
in the middle of the night.
And no one knows where he is. And this is in broad daylight. So he grabs it and he was like, hey, I kept it at your place, but you still don't know where it is. And so he tries like the dog. Like,
the dog's name.
And it's like, that's not works. And he's like, would it be Beckalicious? So he finds it and then he opens it up. And already that's weird, okay? Like
that her password's
I have best friends. I love NB.
JLAG's password's not
but
NB.
It wouldn't be NB, that's for sure. And vice versa. So already you're like, this is such a weird situation.
Yeah,
you
it
can
is
tell that
weird.
You can tell that he's onto something. And I think you said
and it's not even like Beck, it's like Beckalicious. It's like calling you like JLAG daddy. Like that's weird.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's one of the things where you said it way back, obvious, and we know, we read the book, so we know this kind of situation was going to come up. But I think that, it's the whole thing about like crazy recognizes crazy. He knows how to get into her mind.
And it's weird, right? Because like in that moment, he doesn't really get phased.
No.
Like when he clicks enter and like it works, he's not like, what the F? He's just like,
well, he does say
browsing.
Like, it couldn't be this. And then he doesn't, he's like,
but then like, he's just like, okay, I'm going to go into Explorer and like look more now.
Yeah. So then he finds this like folder that's like, it's like initials, and then he was like Beckalicious GB, whatever. And so then he opens it, and it's like literally like
every single
megabytes, like gigabytes
of like her life,
of her like just dancing around. Yeah. There's video of her being like, I love you,
like a timeline of like her whole life. It's so
really creepy. And so he was like, oh, you're crazy. He's like, he's like, oh, you're dealing with a stalker. I'm so sorry, Beck. You're dealing with
times
a
two.
stalker. Times like fucking squared. Stalker squared. So then it cuts to him running.
Yeah.
And
this whole time he's been
training
practicing
himself
through Central Park, following Peach on her runs.
But he has like no stamina,
like, he can't
so
keep
he's like
up,
whatever.
Yeah.
There's actually a moment where like, anyway, we'll talk about it after. But yeah, so he's running and he's trying to like break her down. He was like, she's obsessed with you, obviously, because she is a Salinger and her family's like so well to do. She's had to pretend that she's straight this whole time in her life, and now it's like coming out in her obsession with you.
Right.
So it's like this whole, he's like breaking it all down. He was like, I need to figure out how to deal with the situation. I'm not sure yet. Right. He's just trying to keep up with her, essentially.
So that's another thing too. The fact that he jumps straight to her being a lesbian, like, does that really make sense? Like, she could be obsessed with Beck. We know what it is for real.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, it could have been more than just her being a lesbian, being in love with Beck, right? Like, she could just be a straight up killer.
I mean,
creeper,
Joe's not stalking Beck just to stalk her.
Joe's different, but what I'm saying is Peach.
But what I'm trying to say is, like, when
like,
you have an affection
her,
for
basically.
someone, I think that's the thing. Like, you can't see it as like just an obsessed friend.
Okay.
Like I said, you and I BFFs, but I would never put my password as my name. Like, that's a next level obsession that has to do with like love
like
or something sexual.
Because I think in the books too, when it did get there where I was like, oh, like, she's like in love with her.
Yeah.
I was kind of like shook. I didn't
like obsessed.
I thought she was just obsessed with her, like in a
friend way?
like, I want to be a basic bitch like you all my life kind of way. But then when it got there, I was like, oh shit, like, no, she wants to like fuck her. Like, I was shook at that. I didn't think it was gonna get to that level of obsession. But then, like
the pictures are very like thing,
and she's
you
been
know?
I love you, like, so
for sure. And she probably like does what he does. Just like,
I just want to know, is everyone at the same like point where it's like, yeah, we definitely thought she was a closeted lesbian, sexually in love,
right?
With
anyway, let us know what you
think, because at first I did not.
Were you guys gagged of this moment that we saw? Then it cuts to Beck getting picked up by the publisher, and already you know this is gonna go really, really bad. He literally rolls down the window.
Limo.
He's in the limo and he was like, "You're like a literary slut, like prostitute." I'm like,
and she's like, I was like, no,
just
leave right now. Like, take his money and dip.
You know what the answer is gonna be when you get to that fucking limo. So whatever. So they're talking about stuff. He gets very handsy with her. Yeah. She gets pissed off.
She just wants to get to the business, and he's just like, but what about this?
Yeah.
What about this? And he's like, full out touching her knees.
And then she was like, what the F are you think you're doing? Like, I thought we were just going to be talking about books. This poor girl just thinks everybody wants to talk about books with her. And he's like, you know what? Peach was right about you. Like, your stuff is basic. Like, you're a thing. Like, you're just desperate for whatever. Like, he just uses her, whatever. He want to F her. And so she gets really hurt about this moment.
Because Joe at first said something before that, right?
Oh yes,
he does make a comment.
One of the things we did mention in the, like, we totally missed, which we probably should have talked about, is when they have that argument after Peach leaves, he gets upset because she was like, you know what, he's doing so much, she's doing so much for me, like it's
she
Peach,
got me this
whatever.
Connect, like, I'm gonna, like, whatever,
I'm gonna meet up with him,
and then it comes out, he
like
blurts
it's word
it
vomit,
out.
like Mean Girls, word vomit.
He's like he doesn't even give a shit about you.
They don't give a shit about you. And she was like, you're such an asshole. I can't believe you just said that to me. And so they're on like bad terms. Sorry, we should have said that earlier.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, so basically already, like, her getting into the limo, we know that Joe knows, but now we just need Beck to figure this asshole out.
Right.
And of course, in that moment where he touches her knee and he wants to just get it in, she's like, of course Joe was right. Like,
yeah. So that's the thing. The issue that I keep having is Beck keeps being told things that are like she's doing wrong, and Joe just keeps saying, no, like, you're doing things wrong, and he keeps being proven right. So everything that keeps happening, the fact that he's a stalker psycho,
but she's stupid.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, this is what I'm trying to say. Like, she's dumb. Like, she can't even think for herself.
But that's what I mean. I think when people watch this story or watching it right now, I think a lot of the questions are like, but why is she going through this? Why is she so naive? I think it's just because she's literally living her life and he is doing what a boyfriend would do, you know, like, and she's making the mistakes that a normal person would make.
Totally.
So she's just living it, and it just happens to be with a psycho.
He just seems so much smarter because she's so stupid. Sorry, guys, I don't mean to sound rude, but like,
true. Naive.
He just seems so intelligent and like so aware. Because she's an idiot. Because she walks blindly through life. So, like, of course he's going to look like a freaking genius.
Yeah, it's true.
But, like, anyone would book the fact that he calls you a freaking, literally hooker when he meets you and you still get into the limo. Like, what?
Why are you doing that to yourself?
Anyways, whatever.
We can't even bitch about
That's
her
just
now.
what happens.
So, then it cuts to Joe just chilling out, and Paco like runs in and he's like, this book is shit. He's like, you had to wait 27 years to get his like revenge.
He was just like frustrated. He's like, I'm not gonna wait that long. Like,
he was like, it's too late, I'm so thing. And Joe's like, I'm sorry, bro, like I have no time for you right now.
He was like, get out of here. That scene was like just forced in there, and Joe was like, no, error. This like, is not fitting into my life right now,
or this plot line at all.
Are you a ghost?
So then he dips, and then Beck is like cheese. So she sees Peach on the street, and she's like, you fucking bitch, you like set me up, like you knew that was gonna happen. Joe was right, and
Joe's always right.
Peach kind of claps back, and she's like, what the hell do you think that Joe knows? Like, I'm your friend, like whatever. And Beck stands up for herself, and she's like, listen, you're manipulative, like you did this, and you're whatever. She calls her out right on the street. She walks away. Peach is like, come back, where you going?
Yeah, she like ran after. She's like, come back. I was like, okay, chill, like give her a minute. You can call her later. Well, she does. But it's a very interesting moment because like she does clap back. Like Beck has these moments where she tries to fight. She tries to fight like, Peach. She fought her in the last hour. Like if she still didn't understand what was happening at this point, right, the girls are right off. And like this is her last chance to like stand up for herself. And like she was about to get almost attacked in that limo. Yeah, like it came to the last straw.
She's like, you set me up. He's like, I didn't know he was using. No, he wasn't just using drugs. He was gonna fucking rape your
girlfriend. Since 9/11, he was fine. But then I guess like
Peach is just an idiot in that regard too.
But Beck too, yeah. Like if she didn't stand up for herself now, when is she gonna do it?
Yeah, if she wasn't gonna stand up for herself in this moment,
that's what I'm trying to say.
Girl,
like
you need to like die. Like go away.
She finally came through. You know, I'm like, yeah, but what else?
What else was she gonna come through? It's so true. So then she walks away from her, and it's such an interesting moment because like it's like Beck's waited the entire afternoon for this moment to happen. Yeah. So whatever.
What was she doing during that time?
She dips, and Peach is like sad on the street, and then it cuts to Joe and Beck at the apartment, and Beck is like, I'm sorry again. Yeah. For the 17th time, Beck is apologizing for being such a loser. And she gets a phone call from Peach while they're making out. And she like hangs up. He's like, don't answer that. Then she calls again. And she's like, honestly, she's just going to keep calling until I answer this damn freaking call. So she answers. And sure enough, Peach is like, Beck, this
is my high voice.
She's like dying.
I took some pills.
Yeah.
And then Beck's like, oh shit.
So then she goes there, and
they both go there.
It's like not even really the situation. So
it kind of was like she was definitely sick. Does she fake taking the pills?
No, she doesn't fake taking the pills. But what she does do is, anyway, they're throwing up. She's throwing. Yeah, she's helping her throw up. She's grabbing her. Like it's like a hectic moment, and then while she's throwing up, Joe looks at the diary and he's like, I cannot believe this girl like wrote in her food diary what pills she took. And he's like, none of this would have even made you like sick. It was like ibuprofen and like Tylenol. Like she ingested like all these things that like wouldn't make you overdose. And he's like, we should take you to a hospital. Right. And she was like, if you call the police, they're going to commit me for 72 hours. Like, I don't want that.
So right away, he's calling her bluff, right? He's like, let's go to the hospital if you're sick. Yeah. Come on. And she's like, no. But
then it turns around and like he kind of F's this up too, where he says, you know, if this is a real situation, then we should take her to the hospital. Like, this is serious. And
she hears it, obviously.
Yeah. And Beck turns around and Beck and Peach turn around and they're like, bish wet, like
how could you say that?
How could you
like,
say that this isn't real? I almost just died. Like they clap back so hard, and he feels like an idiot, even though he knows
he just said it in the wrong like
in the wrong way.
Yeah.
He could have turned around and been like,
Timing, too.
look at her diary. It
Yeah.
literally says. Like,
I'm like,
you know?
literally, there's evidence right there.
Yeah.
Just show her the book. I was so
Yeah.
confused at that.
I think it's one of those things where also
Like, she still wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, she wouldn't believe it. She has so much tie, and like that's like the way this whole scene ends. He realizes how much power Peach has over Beck, and so she crawls into bed, and she was like, you know, what would make me feel better is if you stay in here that night. And I was like, this girl won this battle so hard. Like they
and
fought
like,
the
she's
whole.
like, Joe, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Yeah, she's like, leave, bye. And she even ends off like Joe feeling frustrated about the whole situation. She's like, sorry, bro. Gotta go. Hoes before bros. So yeah, I think it was just one of those situations where she got pushed off.
Yeah.
Or he got pushed off. And then it cuts to the neighbors fighting again. And I didn't really catch this, but did like he go back inside the house? Like Paco went back inside the house, and that was like the end of the scene. And then anyway, he sees the neighbors fighting again.
Right.
Then he goes to sleep, and then it cuts to the next morning,
right.
where like Joe's now very angry. He's very angry at Peach, and he's like, she's never gonna leave us alone if I don't get rid of her somehow. So he's running, and this is something that actually I would love to ask the audience. Did you guys think this moment was gonna happen? Because we knew it was gonna happen, but he's running after her, chasing her down like this area. And also have to remember, this is supposed to be like in the middle of like broad ass like daylight, but like early in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning.
And like Central Park, so like it's huge, right? Like,
it's huge.
I'm sure there's like different areas
there's like
where it's
wooded
quiet.
forest areas. So he turns a corner, he sees her, he catches up with her, and he was like, finally got my running high. Like, now I know what you mean, Peach. Like, I'm getting there, and this is what my goal is. Like, this is what I've been doing this for this whole time. He reaches her, he grabs a rock somehow, like he's carrying a rock at the same time, and he smashes her over the head. Then it cuts to black.
Yeah. Do you even see that?
Well, you see it like right before he hits her over the head.
Oh.
Tell me what you think about this episode.
I didn't like this moment at all. I just felt like I didn't understand why it cut to black.
Right.
I get it. If you guys don't want to show graphic content, like I get that.
Yeah,
but you're also
like
showing
violence.
like people jerking off. Like there's a lot of other shit that they've shown where I'm like, if I know it's a different type of content, like it's more violent, and especially it's against a girl.
Yeah.
So I get that. It was such a build up. You know, there was such a big build up, and this moment was really suspenseful in the book for me. And then I just felt like it kind of was like, and then she was kind of just like, obviously she was just like lying there, and there was like blood coming out of her head. So
I think, to your point, to the show's defense, I think it has to do with that. It's a violence against a woman, and you don't really want that to be the message that you're sending across everybody, or show the graphic content, or be like, ooh, that was painful.
But here's the thing, you know, like I was just watching The Affair, and The Affair just ended off in a freaking crazy way too, and there was a moment where
something
that exact same thing happens. He pushes her head hits, and she's dead. So like, you can show it. You have to you do kind of have to show it.
Right.
It creates this like thing inside of you. Like there's pain when you watch that, and like, it makes you feel some type of way.
Right.
And I just don't get why they cut.
But we are left with a moment
you
after.
still see it 100%. You still see it, like the blood and shit.
Right.
So like, yeah, it's still gross.
But it's not even just that. I think even his panic, you hear it in his voice and his voiceover. He's like, oh shit, did I kill her? Like you hear you.
Oh, I love that part. Well, he's running away at that
point. And he's running away and he's freaking out. But I think it's one of those things where he calculates to a certain level, and then you realize that what he did, he has a regret for. So it's one of those things again that like humanizes him a little bit. Yeah. But also like, do you care about like how Joe feels in this moment? Why can't he just run away and be like, I got that bitch, and then he like runs? You know what I mean? It's almost like as soon as it happens, he has like instant regret.
Well, that's, I'm sure, what happens to a lot of people that kill people.
I don't know.
It's like a delusional
serial
thing.
killer,
it's a delusional thing, right? Where you do it and you're like, did I actually
like disassociative,
do that? For
whatever.
sure. But what I want to know is, to our audience that hasn't read the books, like, did you guys suspect seeing Joe run through the park even in the beginning of the episode following Peach? Like, did you guys suspect that he was gonna do something to her in the park at some point? Right? Because like, this was one of the moments where I wish I didn't know what was gonna happen, because I really wanted to feel like that suspense of like, where is he gonna do something to her, right? Or is he just following her? You know
what? And this is just a little quick story. I'm watching with my boyfriend, and he was shocked when it happened. He was like, whoa. And I'm like, oh, I guess it was a shock to some people.
So I guess maybe for me, it's just like it's not as susceptible because I know what happened.
You were just
but
waiting
I also
to see
just
like
feel
how
like
they were gonna do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he hits her over the head. You think that she's dead, and you're like, oh shit. Even in the book, I was like,
oh yeah,
he killed her.
Yeah,
damn.
Like damn, she's dead.
And I thought that they were gonna end off the episode that way, like him like running away and being like, I got away with it, and then like cliffhanger at the end of that. But that's not the case. He gets home and he's like, by the time he gets home, he's more okay with it. He's like, I did this for us, Beck. Like, you know, this is for us, whatever. And he gets up the stairs and he sees Mandem, the
Paco's stepdad,
like lying on the floor in the middle of the hallway, and Paco's just standing over him. He's like, I gave him sleeping pills. I didn't know how many I gave him. Yeah. Like, so annoying, first of all.
And the dad's like basically almost
dead. And he's like, okay, I guess I gotta take care of this guy. And so he like pats him on the back. He like makes him throw up. The guy throws up. For someone who took like 17 sleeping pills or whatever, you'd think that he'd be groggy. But no. This guy like rages out at Joe, and he's like freaking like he throws the shit out of him.
And then like I think Joe's still like on him or like around him, and then he just beats the shit out of Joe. I was like, bro, you were almost like dead. Like,
and then he like walks away. He's like, bye. He like just goes back into the room.
But the worst part was that Paco watched it all happen and didn't do shit.
Yes, and it makes me so angry.
Like, I don't understand the point of this kid's like storyline. Like, I don't understand.
Anyway, I don't even want to get into it right now. Wait till the roundups, guys. So, so then that's how it ends. Him bleeding on the floor and him getting a phone call from Beck because he's like, honestly, I just got myself beat up, but I'm happy to hear her voice.
He's like, it's all karma. I get it. Like, I just killed Peach, so like this guy almost killed me. Cool.
Right. So he gets the phone call and Beck is like freaking out. She's like, I'm going to the hospital.
Like Peach just got
attacked, but she's in the ER.
Yeah.
And he's like, she's alive? Bug.
Yeah.
And then that's how the episode ends. So that's the episode. What did you think of the ending? What did you think of how everything kind of
I love the ending for sure. And what you were saying before too, like they could have ended it off with her just being on the floor,
right? And
like you guys having to wait like a whole another week,
right,
for that phone call. But it all like came together perfectly in the end.
Yeah.
And her being like, no, she's still alive.
Recap roundups.
Best moment. What was your best moment?
My best moment had to be the bookstore, the party at the bookstore. Just because I loved seeing Joe and Peach and their dynamic together, and you know, like Shay Mitchell and our man Dan Humphries, whatever his name is, like doing their thing.
Yeah, it was
and seeing that whole thing back and forth was really, really cool. I liked it a lot.
My best moment was, I think, the jogging scene at the end. It was still, even though like I wasn't satisfied with the edit, it was still like I think my best moment of the episode for sure.
Okay, fair enough. It was a good episode. It was a good part of the episode for sure.
And I guess like in a sense, like it does catch the violence catches you off guard too.
Yeah, it's true.
You know?
And
because it's been a while since like the last time he did something like Benji died like how many episodes ago,
right?
You know?
And I think that's to your point. Every time he does get violent, it does catch you off guard because you're like, he's so helpless. He acts so helpless. He seems so smart. Why does he have to get to this violent point?
And I think the author too, like big ups to her. She did an amazing job in the book, you know, just being in his head. Like it's really hard to get into someone's head and then like put that on paper. And I think even in the show, in that moment where he's running away from Peach's body, like he's just scrambling and he's trying to justify like what he just did, why he did it, you know, all these things in it. And it really does help you understand Joe so much more. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's all in that writing. It's all in the dialogue that he has within himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
WTF moment. WTF moment was effing Paco and the stepdad and like just all of that. Like I just don't understand where they're going with this storyline. I don't get Paco. He's such a loser. Like what did he just do this all for?
Yeah.
And I just don't. I really like in all of this that just caught me really off guard. And I was like, I don't know what they're gonna do with the stepdad. Like, is he supposed to be there because he's gonna like find out who Joe really is? Like, is Joe gonna kill him? And if so, like, who cares? Like, fine, go kill him.
Who
cares? You know? I don't know where they're going with that. And it.
Like I said, I feel like this is gonna be something that's going to be a character that we thought was gonna do something to Joe later, and it's just gonna be wrapped into the stepdad. I just don't know how that's gonna even be wrapped up either. So I have no idea.
Unless it's like a metaphor for like again, like Joe his whole life he didn't do shit all when he was a kid.
Right.
And so now he's like killing people because now he's like doing things.
Sure.
Maybe.
I can see that. Yeah, that makes sense.
But like reach.
Yeah, that's a full reach. Absolutely. Mine also was specifically Joe getting beaten up at the very end, just because it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You think that things are fine. You like the episode could have ended with, you know, him closing the door, being like, oh, fucking got away
and then
with
getting
it,
the call,
and then getting the phone call. What was this whole beat up moment? Why was it happening? And also the unrealisticness of, I don't know that's not a word, but the fact that he literally gets up from a coma, beats the F out of somebody and walks out and then locks his door. Like all of that was unbelievable. Yeah. And I know that a lot of this isn't believable, but come on, girl. Like I didn't understand why this was a part of it at all.
MVP. My MVP is going to go to two people, Joe and Peach, because they were amazing this episode together.
Okay, there you go.
Their dynamic is on fire. Mm-hmm. They are so effing creepy together. And I think they just killed this episode for sure.
Yeah, I agree. My MVP, I'm giving it to Joe specifically. I do like what Peach did, but I think Joe obviously came out on top in this one, so I have to give it to him.
Literally.
Like I said last episode, or a couple episodes back when I gave him MVP, I was like, this is the last time I'm going to be giving him MVP because he's a psycho. But I think this moment too, like he's just protecting his relationship. He's protecting his girl. He's doing literally whatever it takes. He's taking it to an extreme. I definitely don't endorse his actions at all. All I'm saying is he's literally doing everything it takes to keep that relationship and maintain his relationship.
LVP.
You know. You already know.
Oh, I already know.
You already know who it is. My LVP has to go to Paco. I know that you're like, why do you keep coming for this 8-year-old kid?
I mean, this one was definitely, I understand.
I was very frustrated with him as a plot device. I am very frustrated with him as a character. Yeah. I think literally every single time we see Paco, he's out here doing some dumb shit.
Well, especially
and he's
this
making
one.
me
he didn't
so
do
angry.
Anything. He just stood over Joe getting beaten his ass kicked.
Like it's
like,
Paco getting
him.
frustrated the entire time. He yells at Joe later on, and then he tries to accidentally kill his thing, and like all of this is because Joe still wants to protect this kid. Yeah. Like it makes me very annoyed that he has such a deep connection with his kid. And yeah, to a degree, I kind of agree with the stepdad at this point. It's creepy. It's weird. Why are you guys still connected? Like, I don't understand this whole situation. It's making me very frustrated. What is Paco's purpose? At this point, episode 5, what are you effing doing? I'm very annoyed about it. So,
and it can't just be like a metaphor for Joe's past. Like
we get it, but like let's
ain't
move
nobody
on.
got time for that.
I don't care anymore. Yeah. So yeah, I'm ready to move on from his character. I really want to know what do you guys think about his character and like what his device is. I really want to know what Caroline Kepnes thinks about her, like him as a character. I'm gonna tweet her right now. Let us know.
My LVP is gonna be Beck. Because I knew you were gonna pick Paco, so but it has to be Beck. And honestly, I hate hating on women, I really do, but she's so stupid and there's just no other way to like do it or say it. Yeah, she's so stupid and she just makes such naive choices. Like, oh yeah, everything's gonna be okay. I'm gonna go in this limo and then like just be more aware. Just be more careful. Awake. Just be more awake. Like, I think she's such a dumb person that it's so hard. I hope it's hard for people to connect with her, because I don't think anyone is this naive. There could be, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard.
I mean, like I said, it's the same thing about like what Joe did with Peach. Everything is very extreme and amplified in this world. It's true. Like, we can't take any of what any of them do to heart, really, because it's very extreme. Killing somebody, killing your best friend, trying to smash somebody's head open in the middle of a park, like, you can't do any of those things. Yeah. That's all diabolical and evil. Yeah. So you, like, no. And same with her. She's not... I hope, like you said, I hope she's not a real person that actually does these dumb things, but I'm sure there's people who have
I wanted to be nice. I didn't want to say that, but I'm sure there is. I wanted to like, you know, be like strong for every woman out there.
Yeah, but
yeah, no.
People make mistakes.
She's
People
my LVP. Basically emotional.
She's a little foolish, fair enough, and she does attract people in her life that take advantage of her naivety. Like that's basically all it is.
And like I was saying before, I really truly believe people like her attract people like Peach and Joe 100,
right?
Because otherwise you wouldn't.
Because your door's always open. You're literally your bay windows
you need it as much as
open.
they need you.
You want the attention. You want people to love
you.
Sorry,
I don't mean to hate on you, but
you gotta do what you gotta do. I'm tired, guys.
The best line.
What's your best line?
And my best line, and this is, I hate like following it up with what I just said about Beck, but it was when Joe was, sometimes I swear I'm the only real feminist you know. You know, the author, especially in the book, like you're constantly looking at our generation. Yeah. You're constantly looking at like how we live our lives, how we do things, and how we treat each other, like just as women, I feel like too. Definitely in that room, you're hearing all that like cattiness and like, you know, they're talking shit about each other behind each other's back. Like, and it's just ironic that he considers himself like the real feminist out of all of that.
It's so true. So true. That was actually one of my favorite lines as well. Another line that I really liked is when Peach, it's the back and forth in the bookshop where he's talking about the fact that he's running and he says, or it's Peach saying, runner's high is better than sex and for some may last longer. And I'm like,
I think I burst out laughing. Yeah,
like,
I was
it's
like,
just such an awkward moment. And
he's like, bitch.
Yeah.
Like in his voice.
He's like, okay, bitch, I see you. Yeah. It's just like I said, just throws back to their dynamic together and the fact that there's so much tension between the two of them, and it all ends off with him trying to kill her. So you know, what you gonna do? That's the episode, guys. Let us know what you thought about it. I thought it was pretty decent. I'm really looking forward to how they're gonna wrap up the rest of the season. We're about halfway there now, I guess, right? So let us know what you guys are thinking. Give us your theories.
And don't forget, Riverdale is back tomorrow for our Riverdale listeners. So be sure to check back in with us tomorrow, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, every day of the year.
We're gonna be excited. Here,
and we're so excited.
You guys don't even know what's coming our way. Just
okay.
bye.